Jelly Roll didn't wake up one morning and decide to become a weight loss headline. This story doesn't begin with a dramatic before and after photo or a triumphant moment on a scale. It begins in a place most people never see, a quiet, suffocating reality where his body weighed over 500 pounds, his health was unraveling, and his own words described his life as a never-ending sadness. At that point, fame meant nothing. Chart-topping songs meant nothing. Sold-out arenas meant nothing. Because when simply existing hurts, when getting out of bed feels like a battle, success feels hollow. For years, Jelly Roll wore his weight like emotional armor. He joked about it. He owned it. He leaned into it as part of his image, part of his story. Fans loved him for that honesty, for the way he never pretended to be perfect, never acted above anyone else. His size became part of his brand, part of the relatability that made people feel seen. But behind the jokes and confidence, the weight was slowly stealing his life. Every movement came with calculation. Every walk came with fear. Chairs weren't just chairs, they were risks. Stairs weren't just stairs, they were obstacles. Airplanes, buses, hotel rooms, dressing rooms. Nothing was neutral. Everything required planning. Everything came with anxiety. Everything reminded him that his body was no longer something he controlled. And the physical pain was constant. His joints ached under the pressure. His back hurt. His knees burned. His breathing was labored even when standing still. Sleep didn't feel restorative. It felt shallow and restless. Energy was non-existent. He wasn't just tired, he was depleted. And worst of all, he felt trapped inside a body that refused to cooperate. Doctors warned him again and again. His blood work told a brutal story. Cholesterol levels were dangerously high. Blood sugar was edging toward disaster. His heart was under strain. His hormones were crashing. And then came the moment that shattered whatever denial remained. His testosterone levels had dropped to a shockingly low number. Not just low, but alarmingly low. That explained the exhaustion, the depression, the emotional numbness, the feeling that his spark was gone. He later admitted that intimacy with his wife, Bunny XO, felt almost impossible, not because of a lack of love or attraction, but because his health had deteriorated so severely that his body simply wasn't functioning the way it should. That reality humiliated him. It scared him. And it forced him to confront something he had avoided for years. If he didn't change, he wasn't just shortening his life, he was actively losing it. And this is where the story truly shifts. What makes Jelly Roll's transformation different from nearly every celebrity weight loss story you've seen isn't the number of pounds lost, it's how he chose to fight back. At a time when weight loss drugs were dominating headlines, when injections promised fast results and minimal effort, Jelly Roll made a deliberate decision. He didn't want shortcuts. He didn't want a quick fix. He didn't want an asterisk next to his transformation. He didn't want to spend the rest of his life wondering if the change was temporary or dependent on something external. He wanted to know, deep down, that if the weight came off, it was because he rebuilt himself from the inside out. Jelly Roll has never hidden from his past. He's spoken openly about addiction, prison time, relapse, and redemption. He's talked about hitting rock bottom, about making mistakes, about learning the hard way. And when it came to his weight, he finally admitted something crucial. Food was his last addiction. The same addictive wiring that once pulled him toward drugs didn't disappear when he got clean. It simply shifted targets. Food became comfort. Food became escape. Food became celebration, distraction, reward, and anesthesia. It numbed pain. It softened trauma. It filled silence. It gave temporary relief from emotions he didn't want to face. Until he treated food addiction, not like a diet problem, nothing was ever going to change. So the journey didn't begin in a gym. It began in therapy. Jelly Roll started doing the hardest work of all, sitting with himself without distraction. No stage, no applause, no noise, just honesty. He unpacked childhood trauma, shame, guilt, and the emotional patterns that had fueled decades of self-destructive behavior. He learned how stress triggered binges, how loneliness amplified cravings, how exhaustion erased discipline, how success didn't protect him from self-sabotage. And slowly, painfully, he learned how to sit with discomfort instead of eating it away. This process wasn't glamorous, it wasn't inspiring to watch, and it didn't produce instant results, and it wasn't linear. There were setbacks, emotional spirals, days when he felt like he was moving backward, days when the old habits screamed louder than logic, days when quitting felt easier than continuing. But instead of chasing perfection, Jelly Roll focused on honesty. One good decision at a time, one meal at a time, one walk at a time, one honest conversation with himself at a time. Once the mental foundation was in place, the physical changes finally had somewhere to land. He rebuilt his relationship with food from the ground up. No extreme diets, no starvation, no punishing restrictions. He learned how to eat like someone who wanted to live, not someone trying to punish himself. Processed junk slowly disappeared. Meals became intentional instead of emotional. Protein, vegetables, hydration, structure, and consistency became non-negotiable. He stopped eating to numb pain and started eating to fuel progress. Movement came next, and it started humbly. At over 500 pounds, traditional workouts weren't realistic or safe, so Jelly Roll walked, slowly, carefully, sometimes painfully, but he showed up anyway. Short walks turned into longer walks turned into light cardio turned into boxing sessions, basketball games, stair climbs, and resistance training, and structured workouts that met him where he was, instead of punishing him for where he wasn't. The key was never intensity, the key was consistency. Even on tour, even in hotel gyms, even backstage, even when exhausted, even when motivation vanished, he moved his body because the alternative was staying trapped. And then, quietly, the weight started to fall. The first 50 pounds felt unreal. The first 100 pounds felt impossible. Clothes stopped fitting, his face sharpened, his posture changed, his eyes looked clearer, his energy returned in waves. By late 2024, he publicly revealed he had crossed the 100-pound mark, and fans were stunned. But Jelly Roll didn't celebrate by slowing down, he doubled down. By 2025, the number passed 200 pounds lost. His mobility transformed. Pain that had followed him for decades began to fade. He could walk without gasping for air. He could bend down without fear. He could stand longer, sit comfortably, exist in public without constantly calculating his body's limitations. And by the time he stepped into 2026, Jelly Roll had lost nearly 300 pounds, from over 500 down to the mid-260s, a number that once felt impossible, a life that once felt unreachable. But the physical transformation, as dramatic as it was, wasn't the biggest change. The fog lifted. Jelly Roll has described rediscovering joy in the smallest moments, touching his toes, seeing his kneecaps, breathing deeply, laughing without discomfort, walking without pain. He slept better, thought clearer, felt present in his own life again. He wasn't surviving anymore, he was living. Emotionally, he reconnected with himself and with his wife. He joked publicly about feeling like a teenager again, but behind the humor was something deeper. Relief. Relief that his body wasn't failing him anymore. Relief that he had taken control back. Relief that he had chosen life. Of course, this journey came with scars. Massive weight loss leaves loose skin, and Jelly Roll has never pretended otherwise. He's spoken openly about the complicated emotions that come with it: pride, discomfort, gratitude, frustration, all at once. The loose skin is a reminder of how far he's come, but it's also a physical challenge that affects movement and comfort. He's considered surgery, not for vanity, but for quality of life. And he's been clear about one thing: even that decision will be thoughtful, not impulsive. public reaction has been overwhelming. Fans flooded social media with praise, disbelief, and gratitude. Many said watching Jelly Roll change forced them to confront their own habits. Others said his honesty made them feel less alone. Some criticized him for not using weight loss drugs, and his response has remained calm and consistent. He doesn't judge anyone who chooses that path, but for him, this journey had to be earned. In interviews and long-form conversations, Jelly Roll has admitted that this transformation didn't come from motivation, it came from discipline. Motivation fades, discipline stays. He didn't wait until he felt ready, he acted until readiness followed. He's also been transparent about setbacks, plateaus where the scale refused to move, emotional lows unrelated to weight, moments when progress felt fragile. And that honesty is exactly why this story resonates, because it isn't a fairy tale, it's a grind. Today, Jelly Roll stands as one of the most dramatic natural weight loss transformations in modern celebrity culture, not because he chased perfection, but because he chose persistence. No miracle injection, no overnight reveal, just thousands of small, unglamorous decisions stacked day after day until they changed everything. He didn't just lose weight, he lost excuses, he lost denial, he lost the version of himself that believed change was impossible. What remains is a man who carries his past proudly but no longer lets it dictate his future, a man who turned survival into purpose, a man who proves that transformation doesn't come from shortcuts, it comes from showing up even when it hurts. And if Jelly Roll's story proves anything, it's this: no matter how far gone you think you are, it's never too late to choose yourself. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.